Good morning and welcome to the show. The topic this morning is the Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, and we're fortunate to have with us the National Grand Vassalist of that organization, Dr. KWhite from Tennessee State University, as well as being the Grand Vassalist of Sigma Gamma Rho. And let me welcome you to the show this morning, Dr. White.
Thank you.
Dr. White, what we'd like to do this morning is to talk about the Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. But before we do that, I'd like to get you to give us some information in reference to how you became the national president of this organization, and perhaps give us some more information relative to your background and how you became involved in higher education and that kind of information.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. It happens that I am a graduate of high school down in Franklin, Tennessee. That is where I was born. And after I left Franklin, Tennessee and came to Tennessee State University, I became acquainted with Greekdom. And having become acquainted with Greekdom, I sought out to become affiliated with the one that I chose as my preference. And after becoming acquainted with it and joining the organization, I found that there were many opportunities for serving the community. Community service was one of the big things that we had at that time at Tennessee State University. I majored, of course, in biology and got my first degree from Tennessee State and left there to teach in a place called Shelbyville, Tennessee, Bedford County. You're probably acquainted with it. The walking horse capital, we call it, of the world. And I spent several years down there teaching at both the elementary and secondary levels. After that, I came to Nashville, Tennessee, and worked in the city school system of Nashville at Fort Greene Elementary School. And for some time, there was a Dr. William Jackson who was at the university, and he continued to want me to come to Tennessee State because in the interim I had received a master's degree after attending several of the colleges here and elsewhere. And I finally agreed to come to Tennessee State University. And once I became affiliated with Tennessee State University, I started working with my sorority a lot more closely than I was working when I was in Shelbyville and even when I was in Nashville, though I was affiliated with the graduate chapter, or the alumni chapter, so to speak. But I became the campus advisor to Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, and I went several places with the organization, taking the young women for various experiences, and I continued to be asked to do this or to do that. I was conducting workshops and forums and clinics and things of this sort, and eventually I was heading different committees and things of this sort. So finally I was persuaded to run for an office, and the first time I ran for an office was for regional director, and I did not win that regional director's post. But my friends continued to say, well, you're qualified, Katie, you do very well. Why don't you run again? So I made up my mind, yes, I'm going to run for it again, and this time I'm getting it. And so I did. I ran for it again, and I won it hands down. And I've gone for several other offices since then, and each time I'd go for an office, I'd seem to get it. I'd get the most votes. And once I got the most votes, then I was in. So finally I became the vice president, and many people said that once you become vice president, there's no point in stopping. You may as well go to the top. And it was sort of a mandate from my sorors across the country that you have a lot to offer the organization. You have good leadership skills. You've done very well in everything you've attempted within the organization. You're a very fine individual working at Tennessee State University, in contact with the undergraduates where we put most of our emphasis. And as a result, I ran for the Grand Vassalist of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority after I had a double bypass, of course. But my friends told me that it didn't matter. You run anyway. So I ran, and things have gone real well. I became the Grand Vassalist in 1988. I'm in my second term. I ran for re-election, and I'm in my second term. And I work with young women all over the country, in fact, all over the world now, with reference to sorority activities. And that's how I came to be associated with the Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, and I've been excited about it ever since.
Let's talk about the founding and give us some history in reference to that organization, because certainly we know it's a service kind of organization, as most sororities are. But what are some of the things that might be peculiar in reference to your organization that might distinguish that organization from perhaps some of the other like-minded organizations?
Well, let's start with a little bit about the history and founding, because this organization, as opposed to the other predominantly black or historically black sororities, Sigma Gamma Rho was founded not at Howard University, but it was founded at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana. You know, that's a white institution at that time. It was practically all white. There were a few black people who were enrolled in that school, and the black women that were enrolled in that school felt a little ostracized. They couldn't join the sororities and the social clubs and enjoy all of the other things that people enjoy other than education at an institution. And because of that, they decided that they would band themselves together. You sort of need a little bit of a support system, a networking, and they didn't have that networking. They could not network because they were not allowed in those organizations. So headed by Mary Lou Allison Gardner Little, we went into something that was called the founding of a new sorority at a predominantly white institution. Sigma Gamma Rho became that organization. There were 7 young women who decided that they would take that task, and they worked with it, and we were founded in 1922 at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the first chapter, of course, was the Alpha chapter at Butler. Since that time, we have grown in number to over 350 chapters. Some are undergraduate and some are alumni. At that time, most of the chapters were at predominantly black institutions, or might I say historically black institutions, because that's where we were. And most of the members were perhaps spread out across the Southland at these historically black colleges. We did have some in the north and in the east, but most of the time when you would have a campus chapter, if you didn't already have an alumni chapter, soon one would emerge, because the graduates would get out, start working, and decide, well, we are out of school now, we have to get ourselves an alumni chapter. You know, this is really a collegiate sorority where we basically carry people in during their